Yes, people, welcome back to the SPTC podcast. I, as always, am your host, Jay Mcintosh, joined by Mr. Simon Phillips with his fresh beard trim looking good. How are you doing, Si?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm trying to fight out the greys, trying to keep the greys out of the beard. They're starting to creep in these days.
I keep getting told that because I have red hair, that when I get to a point in my life where I start growing, it will go white, but I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I never really thought about that. I guess that makes sense, doesn't it? Because of the tone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't imagine you with white hair, though.
No. Oh, no, me neither. But you can't really imagine yourself old until you get there.
True.
But we all do.
No, none coming through yet, though, no?
No, oh goodness, no. Maybe in 15 years or so, but not now.
Baby.
Apologies to any of the listeners currently graying. That might be Chelsea induced as well, to be fair. So we will talk about Chelsea Qarabag in just a second, but given I think the true essence of this show and the SPTC page as a whole is really, really strong when it comes to transfer size. So to have a little bit of something's kind of interesting to talk about. And there was something on the site about Newcastle's Sven Botman, right?
Yeah, he's a player that Chelsea have liked for a long time. I think they actually tried or were quite close to getting him in 2022, I believe it was. And he's a player who's stayed on the radar, and obviously his contract he's got a year left in this summer on his contract. Newcastle are trying to tie him down to a new deal, but Chelsea are kind of coming back into the conversation. They're talking about him again as a possible defensive target because he's the kind of profile they want to get, a little bit more experience, a little bit older, a bit more of a presence. And yeah, he's certainly, I know Liverpool are another club that are watching him, and there's a feeling within the industry that he might be attainable in the summer. So it won't be for January, but it will be for the summer if anything happens at all. But as I say, Newcastle are still trying to get him tied up to a new contract. He's in no hurry to leave, so I think he's going to keep his options open at the moment. But Chelsea could maybe one of those options. And I'm going to throw this back to you now, Jay, because they got some mixed reactions, the article. Some people were for it, others like dead against it. There didn't seem to be much in the middle.
Well, yeah, I think to lean into a bit more of nuance, I suppose, Botman's a wonderful player. He's such a gifted player. People forget he's only 25. Like, he was a wonder kid as well. Sort of 7-8 years ago, he was a real wonder kid coming up through at Leverkusen, right, and then got his move to Newcastle. So 25 years old, super talented, super experienced, and with centre backs they can age finer than other players. However, the biggest issue with Botman is he's missed way over 500 days worth of, like 500 days of being injured, essentially, like 550, maybe 530, around that mark of days that he's missed through being injured, including ACL tear. So that would be the concern. If you, for example, as we'll get onto in a minute to talk about Qarabag, if you look at the top comments on YouTube, there's people asking for, please, can Chelsea provide consistency? And Sven Botman, whilst being consistently brilliant when he's on the pitch, isn't always on the pitch. And the ACL injury itself, I think, put him out for over 368 days. And so that is essentially like what Fofana has had to deal with. And do we want another Fofana? Well, inability maybe, but in injury record, I don't think we do. And that's the concern. And we'll talk about Lavia later as well. But that would be the concern with Botman. As a football player, yeah, brilliant. I think he's a better footballer than all of our centre-backs, maybe. But I don't know whether that's too much of a push. But he's certainly got everything that he needs to be top level. And that's certainly why Newcastle invested in him. But yeah, his injury record is pretty tough. So I don't know. If you can get him on a decent, like for a really decent fee on a decent wage, then maybe like his contract runs out. Is it in the summer?
He's got a year left this summer, so 2027 it runs out.
Okay, yeah. So if you can get a cut price fee, then okay, like I can sort of understand that. But I wouldn't bank on him to be a starter. because of the injury record. Although, Reece James has had his problems, and we bank on him to start as regularly as we can. And Maresca, anyway, seems to have improved the difficulties we have with injuries, or his squad have. I don't think Chelsea are quite so ridden as they used to be, touch wood. So yeah, that would be my sort of rambly thoughts. Si, what did you think of Qarabag 2, Chelsea 2?
It was a very bad first half. I think we definitely improved in the second half, and we pushed for the goal, the winner. It didn't come, obviously, but I think, we were unfortunate in some moments of the game. But the bottom line is, Qarabag just wanted it more. And I looked at the physical stats just before I came on this call, actually, and they were ahead of Chelsea on everything, like running faster, running quicker, just basically more physical than Chelsea, proving that they wanted it more. And I was really surprised by them. They were very good, and they were very up for it. They had some very tricky, talented players who were causing a lot of problems for us at the back. They pressed us high for the majority of the game. And then I thought it was very clever as well of their coach to switch it up at a perfect moment, and they went more defensive to see out the draw. And can you stop it? Can you hear? Really impressed with Qarabag, and I thought they were doing a lot more running than Chelsea, and as I was saying, the manager switched it up at a perfect time, and they went defensive and saw the game out, and that's what they needed to do at that point, and that's what they did. It was a big point for them. They weren't expected to get anything from the game. Chelsea were fully expected to be comfortable winners, really. These kind of games, they can always throw up a banana skin, but when you put Chelsea on paper and how much we've invested in our squad, and you put Qarabag on paper and how much they've invested in their squad, Chelsea should be winning that game, no questions about it. So it was a tough game for Chelsea, and I don't think that anyone was really expecting it to be that difficult. There was a few players who stood out that we'll talk about individually in a minute, but also, again, so poor at the back with the individual errors. I thought every time that they pressed us in the first half, we looked like we were going to give it away. We looked very, not assured at all on the ball. And there was the usual concerns that everyone's been speaking about after the game about, the back line just not being good enough quality-wise. It gets rotated every single time we play. There's no solid two at the moment. I know Levi Colwell is out injured, and it's hard to do that. And Wesley Fofana, obviously, they're trying to bring him back in gradually, which is the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. But he's picking different players, for the centre-back positions every single game. And I think you just need a solid two as much as you can do, whilst thinking about fatigue as well. And I think that is our big problem right now. And once we're 2-1 down at half-time, it's a long way back. And we just didn't have enough time in the second half to find that winning goal. I think if we had an extra 5 or 10 minutes, we probably would have got it. Yeah. But in the end, 2-2 against Qarabag is just not a good enough result, really.
No, not particularly. And I think it's worth just delving into those stats that you mentioned about running. So if I can read them out for those that haven't seen them, but Qarabag, they covered 116.1 kilometers, Chelsea just under 110. Chelsea players walked more, 33.3 kilometers as opposed to 30 for Qarabag. In terms of running, Qarabag covered 8 more kilometers than Chelsea players did, almost 9 more kilometers. They sprinted more. The number of sprints was higher, and even their top speed of 32.8 kilometers an hour was faster than any Chelsea player at 31.1, which I think sort of leans into those figures you were saying, Si, and duels and ground duels as well. Qarabag came out on top, more clearances also. They were industrious in their play, but Qarabag is a super tough away game. Like it's just, I was really thinking about the sort of practicalities of being a human being, and as you know, Si, and as most of the people listening know, I've been traveling here, there, and everywhere all the time. Like if you had to travel from London to Baku to play a football game in there, and then leave to come back to play football on the weekend, like your body clock's going to be odd, your sleep's going to be a little bit off. Everything's just a bit stretched, and when you look at the Champions League table, Chelsea is sort of between 9th and 13th, somewhere in there, right? I think they sit roughly there. I'll double check just to look now. Yeah, they're 12th on 7 points, and Atalanta on 16th, also with 7 points. Qarabag are in there on 7 points, as are Dortmund, Sporting, and Barcelona. So Qarabag have been punching well this season, and they put in an impressive performance. And I don't think if you watch the game, you would think they deserve to win outside of the sort of underdog thing. They had a higher XG, but I still feel as though Chelsea had more chances to score. I'm thinking, Enzo shot that came off Delap's head, those kind of things.
Bruno also had a chance as well that was just wide.
Yeah, because that's overall quite a low XG chance at that point. But in reality, it's like, well, actually, that's really close to going in, because if it didn't shave Delap's head, that's actually probably going in. So yeah, it's one of those. I'm not really that fussed. Like, I'll be more fuming if Chelsea don't win at the weekend, which we'll get onto in a bit. Man of the match, Estevao, I suppose. Si?
Yeah, no one else really stood out and did too much, and I think Estevao was the only player who was really making things happen and looking like a threat. There was a period in the game where he went pretty quiet, and I think Qarabag made a change, and then they had a new player marking him, and he was then cooking this guy every time he got the ball. So I think that did help. But Estevao in the first half was Chelsea's only bright spark in a very poor half. His goal was obviously great, the way he chopped it onto his left foot inside, and just, he kind of fell over and still managed to get the ball in the goal. But it's not just what he does with the ball. Estevao is a very physical player as well. He works hard, and he does put a tackle in, and he stands up for himself. And I think that is what sets him apart, really, and what has made him so, available and capable to play in the Premier League, because the question marks were there. He's coming from Brazil. It's a completely different league. How is he going to adapt? How is he going to adapt to the physicalities of this league? And I think he's proven that he's more than capable, more than ready, and more than physically built to play in this league. And I think that is one of the things that really stands out for Estevao, that people don't really talk about as much, but it's important to mention it. Again, last night he was putting himself about, he was mixing it up, and he was taking some rough tackles as well, and getting up and getting on with it. So, in the second half, he could have scored again. He was creating again, and he stayed on the whole game, and easily Chelsea's best player, and a deserved man of the match performance for him. And I think, I said it a couple of weeks ago when we were on here, he's a player that gets people out of their seats every time he gets the ball. And Chelsea have lacked those kind of players, if you other than Cole Palmer in the last couple of seasons. So it's great to have another one alongside Palmer that does that. And I think Chelsea are a much better, a more threatening team when Estevao is playing.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I think to add to your point about Estevao and tackling, Tyreek George 0 defensive contributions, João Pedro 0, Liam Delap 0, Enzo Fernandez 0, Jamie Gittins 1, Sanchez 1, Garnacho 1, Andre Santos 3, Joel Hatto 4, Reece James 4, Caicedo and Estevao both on 5.
Wow.
Estevao, the only Chelsea players that provided more defensive contributions in the game were Cucurella and Tosin. That's it. And he's the highest of any attacker on the pitch for both teams, which I think is really impressive, especially when we've sort of lent into the Qarabag doing the hard running at home in quite a tricky away day, and they're sort of pushing the physicality. It was actually really Estevao that met that when it comes to sort of Chelsea's midfield and attack. He did more defensive contributions than Hatto, I think is interesting, as well as Reece James, although James he attacks too. So yeah, credit to Estevao. I don't I mean ultimately, Sa and I actually said before recording this that we don't think it's really a big deal, this draw. I think it's more important, and we all said at the start of the season, to finish top 4 again in the league and have a decent time in the Champions League. But there's no real expectation to sort of get the minutes under the belt, take the experience. You know, the Champions League is not just Barcelona at home; it is also Qarabag away, and the Champions League is not always glitzy, glamoury. It's not always necessarily exciting, quote unquote. No disrespect to Qarabag, and I think for those players that haven't played in the competition before or really getting minutes for the first time, even Garnacho, his first goal in 2 years in Europe, you know, players that have been out, even someone like Buonanotte, who has hardly touched European football really, like, you know, these experiences are new and they're quite important because, you know, if whether they consciously or not, we're thinking our Qarabag will be a little easier, like we don't need to run so hard, we don't need to do so many things, where you can't really get away with that. And sometimes you need those reality checks. And this Chelsea squad sort of having one of those at Qarabag, so I don't think it's the biggest deal. What I do think is a fairly big deal, though, is what's going on with Romeo Lavia.
Yeah, so Lavia is a situation that kind of goes into a lot of the match reviews from last night. Everyone is saying, you know, I saw a report from the BBC in particular, basically asking whether the squad rotation was causing Chelsea's inconsistencies and has there just been too much rotation. I think there was something like 85 players used in the last 16 games for Chelsea, which is the highest in the Premier League. It's too many, but that's not, you know, it links in with trying to keep players fit. What these people are writing these articles are forgetting that Chelsea played all through the summer. They didn't have a break. They maybe had a week, even 2 weeks at the most. They played all through the summer. Then they go and have 3, I think, maybe 4 international breaks already this season. Well, it will be 4 next week. They're playing too much football. So basically, Maresca's hands are tied. He doesn't have a choice. He has to rotate his squad. He has to use all of the players that he's got because he's got to keep his players as fit as possible. And if he's going to keep picking the same team every week or not rotate as much, then it's just going to cause more injury issues. And then we'll be talking about how Maresca has been overplaying his players. So he can't win. And I feel for him there because they have to rotate. They don't have a choice. They simply have to rotate. You just mentioned there, traveling to Baku and then playing against Wolves on Saturday, you know, 3 days later. It's too much. And Romeo Lavia has to be managed. That's who we're talking about now. But like he's done with Reece James, he's managed him. He doesn't play him every game. He's eased him back in. He's doing the same now with Wesley Fofana. So he has to do it. But with Lavia, it's a concern. It's a major concern. You know, I saw the stats this morning about since he joined from Southampton in 2023, it was, which I didn't even know it was that long ago, but he's had 10 injuries. He's been out for 568 days, missed 86 matches, and he's played just 29 times and never completed a full 90 minutes for Chelsea, which is just madness. It is. We paid 53 million for him.
Yeah, that is smelly.
He's barely around, but also at the same time, I think it's too early because I've heard people say, "Oh, sell him, get rid of him." You know, it's now you just got to move him on. He's not going to be fit or available. I think it's too early to say that. We all said that about Reece James, and look what happened with him. He's come back. He's sustained fitness for about a year now. Lavia is still a young player, so I think we should afford him a little bit more time and patience. But yeah, I do feel like he might end up just being one of those players like a Jack Wilshere, who is
Chelsea's Abu Dhabi. Is that what you're saying? He's going to be our Abu Dhabi.
Or Jack Wilshere, who's now managing Luton, isn't he? Because his career was ended through injuries, and I just feel like Lavia might be one of them. But it's too early, I think, to say that right now.
Yeah, well, let's just hope everything works out for him because he's a wonderful football player. But he is made of paper mache. So let's hope that. Let's hope that he can sort of fix whatever's going on. And you know what? That's exactly how we opened the show with Sven Botman. That's basically the same amount of days. That's what Botman has experienced throughout his career. And, you know, it's Lavia can, like you say, maybe get away with it a little bit because he's so young. Reece got away with it because 1, he was so young, 2, he was Cobham, and 3, he was amazing. like Botman wouldn't come in with any of those things. He would come in just as any other player would, and you have to compete to win fans over and to fight for your place. And if you're going to be, physically not capable, it's not it's not the player's fault always, or rarely actually. But there's sort of nothing you can do about it to a certain extent. I'm happy for Garnacho, Sai. Good that he managed to get a goal. Always nice. Maybe could have got a second at some points in the game. But, I mean, how much reading do you want to do into Qarabag away? Like, I don't think it tells us too much. I think, honestly, mate, like, I think if you were to try and be in the mind of a footballer and you see football sometimes as work, having to get the flight out to there and just play football in the maddest time zone, there back in a day, like, do you know what I mean? You got to try and prep for the weekend. And speaking of the weekend, actually, I think that's what we should move on to, because I think Chelsea will be fine in the Champions League. I look at the team sort of bunched in the group. I think Chelsea can qualify pretty much against any of them. There's a couple of tricky ones in there, but I would back Chelsea to do so. And if they don't, then lessons learned. I'd rather focus on the league this season because it's not looking super pretty right now. But Chelsea are playing a very, very, very bad Wolves team, Si.
Yeah. Before I go on to that, I'm just going to go back to Garnacho because I might actually have an unpopular opinion on Garnacho from last night anyway.
Okay.
I know he got his goal, but I don't think he played very well. I really don't. There was also another chance he had late on. He tried for an overhead kick, and if that went in, then I definitely wouldn't be saying any of this. But like he almost executed that perfectly. It was a good effort. And obviously his finish, take nothing away from his finish, that was superb. And it was a very important goal at a very important time because we needed to get back into the game. And also they were all over us right before that goal came. So it is important for so many reasons. But for the rest of the game, and obviously I watched him very closely because he's a player that I want to give every chance to make it. And I'm backing him, I'm behind him. But I'm gonna watch him play very closely. And I thought his output on the ball just wasn't good enough. He kept losing it easily. There's a couple of times where he tried to do a little flick over where he should have just held the ball up and kept the ball because we were under pressure. And he had a few moments like that. I know he's a young player; he's still learning, so he's gonna have moments like that. But also his goal, when what he actually tried to do was pass it through. I can't remember who was coming through, but they were free. It might have been Estevao. That they were through on goal if he made that pass, which wasn't the hardest pass, but he passed it straight to their centre back, and luckily it came back to him, and then that's when he scored the goal. So luckily he did get that goal. But yeah, maybe I'm nitpicking, and it might be an unpopular opinion, but I don't think he played very well last night, apart from the goal.
Yeah, I don't think that's a sort of overwhelming criticism. I thought he did all right. The two things I think that stood out for me in a sort of critical sense that you're on and maybe in agreement with you is I think he completed 1 out of the 4 take-ons he tried, which is obviously not very good. And his expected assist is something crazy like 0.01. And we spoke earlier about Estevao with 5 defensive actions. Garnacho had 1. So the sort of creativity level and defensive level is not quite there. Fortunately, he got the goal. I think the performance would be viewed differently had he not. And if he scored the bicycle kick, then he would definitely have been man of the match. So it's a funny one. But yeah, I think he's an interesting player for Maresca to have because I think everybody's going to be like you, Sion. That's, quite diligently and respectfully profiling him as a player because Garnacho, I think if you were to take the overall, the sort of median of Chelsea opinion, he would probably be, when you taste something and you're not quite sure whether you like it or not, and then you try again and you're kind of warm to it, like olives or something. Like he's a bit like that. And I think people are trying to work out whether they like the taste or not. And you kind of have to just give it some time and we'll see. But he takes shots, man, and he gets shots on target as well. So, it's a really valuable skill. He's always been a volume shot taker. So it'll be interesting to see what type of player he develops into, because he's 21. Like, he's 7 years younger than me. It's insane. Like, he's really super young. So I think he's got plenty of time, but I wouldn't be surprised to see his position transition through his career, if that makes sense. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Like, honestly, I think he would have been a really interesting second striker pairing, the sort of little and large thing, because his take-ons and dribbling are all right, but actually his shot taking, shots on target is pretty good.
Yeah.
He can play neat one-touch football, and he's comfortable with the ball at his feet, so he could play off a player. So yeah, the transition would be to go back to 2004 or when everybody had two up front and put Garnacho there. But I don't know. It's hard, isn't it? It's hard to profile him because he is a winger, but he's not really. He's not a winger in the sort of traditional sense of a winger. I actually don't think there's many wingers that profile like Garnacho in terms of when you actually watch him play. You know, and the top level wingers that you think of, they don't. His skills and theirs overlap, but not in the way that other players do. You know, you look at Williams at Bilbao or Estevao at Chelsea or Lamar. Yamal or any of those players, like, they're very flair, very pace, very direct. Whereas Garnacho is actually faster than he looks, but his goal is to get shots on target, not to beat a man and play the ball. So that's why I kind of think he'd be better in a more direct position as he gets older, but his finishing could do some work. But it's a nice finish last night, despite their sort of awkward build up, as you said. But yeah, Wolves. They're shit.
Wolves, yeah, but still a dangerous team to play because they sacked their manager. They haven't got the new manager bounce, have they? But I heard today that they're going to have two of their youth coaches or youth managers in charge for that game, because they're not going to get anyone else in before Saturday. So I don't know if that's going to help Chelsea or hurt Chelsea, you know, because sometimes we've seen it loads of times before. The players are playing for a manager and they all fall out. They don't want to play for the manager anymore. They down their tools and they just don't play. I don't know whether it was a case of that at Wolves with Perrier, but it could have been. And if it was, then, you know, are they now going to be like, okay, he's gone. Let's turn up now. Let's play now. And there is that risk. But yeah, they're rock bottom of the Premier League. Chelsea, you know, should be going. It's at Stamford Bridge, so they should be going into this one thinking, here we go. It's a chance to win again after the draw at Qarabag. A perfect chance to get 3 points on the board and keep pressurizing those ahead of them in the league. The league is so up and down at the moment that all it takes for a couple of teams above us to lose and us win, which we had the perfect opportunity to do on Saturday, and then all of a sudden we're in second spot in the league. So, yeah, I mean, it does have an element of banana skin about it, and Wolves have got some very good players. I'll let you cut in a sec, but Chelsea should have this one. Go on.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I was just going to lean into a point that you made at the end there, but yeah, firstly with Wolves. So my very best friend in the whole wide world, I've known him for a very long time. He is a Wolves fan, and his issue, as is the same with every Wolves fan, is not that it's really any manager in particular. It's the fact that the ownership, Fosun, unlike other clubs who always sell their best players, don't reinvest in the right way. Right. And certain players they've reinvested in haven't necessarily worked. Cam, my friend, his concern with Wolves has been that Pereira's lineup has been really poor and he's been playing the wrong way with the wrong players. And there is potential in there for them to be. I wouldn't have had them as the team to get relegated at the start of the season. No. I think they would have been near the bottom, but they wouldn't have been rock bottom where they are. But confidence is so low amongst the Wolves players that they kind of know they're already done. And Chelsea at Stamford Bridge is probably not going to be the one for them that they expect to get things back and firing. I think they're just praying to get to the January transfer window and see what happens if Fosun decide to spend any money, which is potentially unlikely. But you mentioned there that the league is so compressed that all it takes is a 2-point swing and Chelsea can be second. Now, Chelsea are at home against Wolves, who have 2 points in the bottom of the Premier League. Vitor Pereira has been sacked after a 0% win rate this season. Wolves are genuinely terrible, bless them. Now, it's interesting you make that point, Si, because I think the fixtures this week are particularly favourable for Chelsea to get a cheeky win and kind of bounce up the table a little bit. So, just for everyone's awareness, Tottenham play Manchester United. So that's kind of always positive in the sense if that's a draw and Chelsea win, then you can get the Sunderland are at home against Arsenal. Now, you'd expect Arsenal to win it, but Sunderland have been so decent. And the stadium is absolutely pumping and they're having a great time. So it's not an easy game, although I expect Arsenal to win. And equally, I don't think Chelsea are competing with Arsenal this season. I think Chelsea are competing with sort of everybody else.
Yeah.
Palace play Brighton. So that can be a sort of stalemate for both of those two clubs. Villa play Bournemouth at home. Villa have been in better than they were at the start of the season. That can disrupt things. Newcastle are away at Brentford, but then City and Liverpool are playing each other this weekend as well. So you are right. Chelsea are in a position where some of those results, if there's a couple of draws or, a sort of surprise loss, any of those things, it's going to be really interesting. Where if I look at the table now, where are Liverpool sat in the Premier League, Si? They're third and City are second. So if Man City beat Liverpool this weekend and Chelsea win, Chelsea go 2 points clear of Liverpool. And that changes the way the table looks even more because, yes, Liverpool have been struggling, but they're still third in the Premier League. And they did just beat Real Madrid, so they're not a joke team. They're not. And even Bournemouth having to play Villa, there is only 3 points between those two teams, and again a stalemate for Bournemouth. Chelsea take the win; they go 2 points above Bournemouth. Tottenham and Manchester United playing against each other; they're both on 17 points. So it's all those sort of teams bunched up, and it's going to be another sort of weekend of separation, I suppose. But I think it's fair to say that this week, optimistic is different to expectant, and I'm expecting that Chelsea should win this game. Like, I don't think there's any fireworks. I don't just go and win the game. We've got an opportunity now. We've got Burnley the week after.
Yeah.
So we've got Burnley the week after. So it's some points on the board and for a little bit of consistency domestic. That's kind of what I'm expecting. You the same?
Yeah, it's the perfect opportunity, isn't it, to get points on the board and put ourselves back up there. And because we were saying our last pod together that there's going to be, there's that really tough period of games that we've got coming up. And so we need to be winning these games. If we want to be up there or even in the top four by the end of the season, we've got to beat Wolves and we've got to beat Burnley. And there's no question about it.
Yeah, no if, buts, no nothing, just get the win, yeah. Okay, so before we go then, who are you expecting to see starting for Chelsea? And what do you think the score is going to be?
It's interesting that he started Reece James against Qarabag, which would suggest that perhaps Gusto will come back in. And then Chalobah will obviously come back in. Cucurella has obviously got the left-back spot, who also started against Qarabag. But yeah, I think that'll be nailed on. And then the only other question is, does Wesley Fofana start? Which I think he will. I think it'll be him and Trev coming in. Harsh on Achimpong, who didn't play in the week. But unless Wesley Fofana is struggling with something else or still struggling coming back in, then maybe Josh does get a start. But I think it'll be Fofana and Trev at the back. Midfield picks itself at the moment, doesn't it, with Caicedo and Fernandes. Annoyingly, Caicedo had to be used last night. He did start on the bench, but Lavia got injured after 5 minutes and Caicedo had to play the whole game. But he'll play with Fernandes. And I think we'll probably see João Pedro again as the 10 because Liam Delap is back. I think he's back, actually. Suspension wasn't for 2 games, was it?
I don't think so. I think he's back, yeah.
Yeah, so if you've got Liam Delap, he'll be up top, I'd imagine. I think Garnacho will start on the left because Gittins was very poor against Qarabag and came off at half time. And then on the right, I think he'd probably go back with Pedro Neto because he seems to be easing Estevao in still, which is fine.
Well, we're at the Cole Palmer point side, which I think I said last week on the pod, which is 10 games into the season, he's getting to a point where he can't not start, which is exactly what we said at the very start of the season. We'll get 10 games in, and then everyone will realise Estevao kind of has to be starting, and what do we do? And that is, it's kind of getting to that point, I suppose. But to sort of piggyback on what you're saying there, I think equally, introducing Estevao slowly to the league is not a bad thing. Firstly, Pedro Neto is more than capable of doing well against his former club. I think Pedro Neto has actually been pretty consistently decent for Chelsea overall. He could probably score more goals, but I think he's been good overall. And like, oh man, if you're a fullback, if any of you listening play football and you're a fullback and you're playing a full 90 and you're an hour and 5 minutes into playing and someone subs Estevao on, it's so long. It's just so peak. And Estevao's in a position and clearly has the foresight to understand that he's not being left out of the team. He's being slowly integrated into the team. And he clearly is willing and capable to take his chance in 30 minutes when he gets it. So I don't see a massive issue with that right now. And I also agree with you. I think Garnacho will probably start on the left. I'd like to see Delap score, to be honest.
When he came on last night, he was good. He was better. He was hungry, and he actually helped create the second goal for Chelsea. So I think he's realizing now that he doesn't have to just go like gung ho for everything, smashing into everybody. I think he knows that he's got to be a bit more disciplined, and he was a lot smarter. He was running a lot. He was well up for it last night. He was running a lot, but not aimlessly. Like he did very well. So I think next game, start him against Wolves and see how he gets on.
Yeah, and well, I mean, Wolves have a -15 goal difference. So if there's a team to maybe look for to get a goal against, especially when you're at home as well, I'm sure everyone, but especially someone like Delap, is going to be extremely keen to get on the score sheet. And I imagine João Pedro might see it as a chance to knock one on there as well. Score prediction side before we go.
3-1 to Chelsea.
3-1 Chelsea. I think it's going to be 4-2 to Chelsea.
High scoring.
Yeah. I think it will be. But yeah, that's my prediction. So, anything to plug?
Obviously, there's a bunch of articles out today which you can check out live in half an hour from now, 1:00 today. And get on the Substack app as always on Saturday night. Actually, it's 8:00 kickoff on Saturday. So have a few beers, get on the Substack app, and join in with the chatter on there for the game.
Nice. Everyone can join Size. He's drunkenly abusing Chelsea players on the Substack.
That's Danny's job, mate. That's Danny's job.
That is Danny's job. Yeah, that is Danny's job. We know he's listening. Okay, perfect. Well, let's hope that Chelsea can keep everyone's weekend good and happy, and hopefully a few upsets can happen in the league that mean Chelsea can negotiate their way as close to second place in the table as possible. And then if Burnley comes, things could get even better, Si. And incoming 2 losses in a row, and we're sat here on the podcast wishing we get Nicholas Jackson back from loan or something that's going to happen right now. I'll stop. Guys, have a lovely rest of the week. Have a great weekend, and we'll be back next week. Bye-bye.